Good morning, everyone. Let's make a start. It's just gone after 9 o'clock. Thanks for attending today. So we're going to go through basically how to find and write a government tender. It also has relevance to private sector tenders as well. So let's make a start. So my name's David Ashton. I'm Principal Consultant with Corporate Supremacy and a Business Advisor with Business Station since 2014. That's the services that I provide. And I provide also the advisory sessions, webinars and workshops on these subject matters as well. So I won't go. I'm going to send you a copy of this presentation after the event, so I won't go into this in too much detail, but information about Business Station. So take advantage of the range of Business Station services that are provided. We've got advisors across all areas of business management, so do take advantage of those services. And also the ASBAS program, which ends in March, so you've still got some time to sign up and take advantage of those services. So, so please do so. So what we're going to talk about today is basically that. We're going to look at what is tendering, the process, and then we're going to go through some websites on how you can find tender opportunities. And then we'll look at the whole process of deciding to write a tender and then preparing your submission. Then we'll also look at how tenders will be assessed. And then I'm going to touch on management systems to demonstrate your organisational capacity to deliver the goods and services. The buyer is looking to engage a business to deliver what they want, when they want it, at a price they're prepared to pay, and you need to be able to demonstrate you can do that under any circumstance. So just in terms of my experience on tendering, I've sat on both sides of the fence. I've been a procurement manager where I've put out packages to the market and sat on and chaired selection panels and awarded tenders and negotiated contracts and managed contracts for the supply of goods and services. And I've also sat on the BD side, business development side, and submitted tenders to win work for myself, for clients, for companies that I've worked for. I've won tenders, I've lost tenders, so it really depends on a range of factors why you win and lose. Which is what we'll talk about today. So what is tendering? It's a formal, structured process. The buyer sends out a document which outlines, what they want to buy and the process that they'll go through to select the preferred supplier and the rules around the tender process, and also a series of questions that they're going to want you to answer to assist them to determine whether you can deliver what they want when they want it. From your point of view, you need to respond to that document within the deadline provided, outlining, how you can deliver what they want when they want it, and responding to all the questions, supplying all the information and supplying your price. I guess the strategy behind it is to, particularly in the case of public tenders, to attract a greater pool of offers from buyers, for a buyer to select from, so increases competition. All that. Types of tender processes. I use the word tender as a catch-all, but there is various terminology that you'll come across. Expression of interest, generally a two-stage process. The first stage is sort of a pre-qualification process. They'll go to market wanting suppliers to send them information, and then they'll subject you to due diligence and determine a list of pre-qualified suppliers that they would then go out to a tender for. or enter into negotiation for that. An example of that is government common use agreements, where they set up panels of suppliers in which government agencies can use to access goods and services through those. So they don't need to go to tender every time they want goods and services. They've already got to set up a panel of pre-qualified suppliers through an EOI or tender process. So the state government has various contracts relating to legal and provision of stationery and furniture and trades and services and the like. So they're available for agencies to tap into. Request for quote, smaller scale supply, could be ring up and get 3 quotes for something worth $1,000, or it could be $100,000 and require a bit more rigor. Can be verbal or in writing. So these ones may not be publicly advertised, so it's important to identify your target market and then contact organisations, whether they be local government, state government agencies, or private industry, and ask to be put on a supplier list to receive any requests for quotes. Requests for tender, large-scale procurement with high dollar value and also higher risk. Anything over $250,000 in state public sector tenders have to be publicly advertised. Anything in local government over $150,000 has to be publicly advertised. So requests for tenders, generally the scope of works or the specification is clearly defined. So the buyer knows exactly what they want to buy, and you need to prepare your submission on that basis. A request for a proposal, on the other hand, operates similar to a tender, but the scope or specification is not clearly defined, and they're looking for respondents to outline a particular solution for their issue and then prepare their submission and quote on that accordingly. So the next section is finding tender opportunities. So we're looking here at digital platforms predominantly is where you would find and access your tender documents. So register for those websites. They are free of charge, and I'll run through those websites with you. Subscribe to tender email alerts, so you can plug in parameters for the types of tenders that you're interested in. And if those come up, then you'll receive an email advising you of that. Register with individual local governments if they're a market. And there's portals for that, which I'll show you. And again, you'll be able to subscribe to tender email alerts. Given that I said that not every tender or quote is publicly advertised, asked to be put on a supplier register, connect via social media platforms as well, so Facebook and LinkedIn and the like, because they may advertise their quotes on those platforms. So some of the websites that you've got, government, so the first lot of WA and national websites. So WA tenders, WA is the main one for government tenders in Western Australia. Department of Finance, that website will take you to their page, which will show you all the information that procurement managers in government have access to and how government goes about buying goods and services. Federal government or Commonwealth government, so AusTender is the main portal there. All tenders of federal government agencies are listed. And then their contracts for ICT procurement. National projects through the Gateway ICN, big mining, construction and other tender opportunities there. The beauty of that website is you can also list your details as a supplier, and that's available to other companies to access as well if they're looking to engage your services. So 360 providers portal, that's private sector package that some local governments use. I've got no financial connection with any of these ones. Vendor panels, another one. TenderLink. A lot of the local governments in WA use TenderLink as their portal. And that operates like Tenders WA, so you can download the tender documentation from the website and then you upload your submission. WA Local Government Association, you can register your details with them, and they also set up panel contracts that local governments can tap into, like state government agencies do with their panel contracts. If your business is based in Queensland, that's the websites for Queensland tendering opportunities for state government, and Northern Territory, that's the website there for any state government tenders there with the Northern Territory government. And in WA, local governments are required to advertise their tenders greater than $150,000 in a newspaper circulating in the state. So they mostly do that in the West Australian, and they're advertised in the Wednesday and Saturday editions of the paper. And that's the one on the right there is an example of the type of advert you will see, and they'll generally refer you to their tender portal to download the information. Likewise, a lot of construction companies are advertising for subcontractors, and they'll be advertising in the same section near the local government, so it's the classified section, and that's an example of what a tender would, one of those ads would look like. So go through and register for those websites. You can register for websites in other states as well if you're looking to expand your market into those areas, and register for your tender emails so you get those alerts coming through to you. So the next part is deciding to submit a tender. So once you've registered for all those websites, and then you're receiving notification of tenders through the emails, you might come across a tender that you think's worth having a look at. So you need at that point then to download the documentation from the website, and importantly, review the document to understand what they're actually wanting. So the scope, the specifications and the requirements. So be very clear on what they're wanting to buy. You need to look at the list of criteria that you must meet. So that's the qualitative criteria, the selection criteria, and the any pre-qualification requirements, and also any compliance requirements. You need to read and be clear on the rules of the tender, so instructions about the tender process. And you need to ascertain the details of the buyer and what they are trying to achieve. So they'll generally have a bit of an information spiel about them, and you need to understand what they're trying to achieve through the tender process in terms of the purchase of goods and services. Do your research on the organisation that's tendering so you can get a clear understanding of what is required. So determine what the buyer is looking for, and importantly, determine what type of organisation the buyer is looking to engage. Do you meet that requirement? Are you the type of organisation that they're looking to engage for the supply of that good or service? If you're not sure of anything in the document, seek clarification or ask questions. There will be a contact name for you to contact, and you can only contact that person. They'll more than likely ask you to submit your query in writing, but you do have that opportunity. And as I said, it's important that you are clear on matters, because that's going to determine how your understanding of what's required, and the documentation will determine your response to answers and your price. So it's very clear that you're across the detail, you understand what it is they're wanting, because you want to be able to answer the questions the appropriate way, and you also want to submit a fair price as well. You don't want to sort of undersell yourself on price or anything like that. So briefing sessions, a number of tenders will have a requirement for a briefing session. Basically, this is just where they'll get all the prospective respondents to attend a meeting where they'll go through the details of the tender, answer any questions that you may have or clarify any points. They might give you additional information. You might have to review the location, facilities type tenders, so cleaning, construction, those types of tenders often require you to go to the location to have a look at. And the other advantage for you is it'll give you an opportunity to see who your likely competitors are in that tender. Obviously, they'll see you there, but you'll be able to see them there as well. Now, the briefing sessions form part of the rules of the tender. If it states that it's a mandatory requirement that you attend, then you must attend. If not, your bid won't be considered because you haven't met the rules. Generally, that's a pre-qualification requirement, so you must attend it. If they're non-mandatory, it's optional. It's up to you whether you want to attend. I recommend you do attend for the reasons in the last few dot points. But also, if we go over to the next slide, it'll give you an opportunity to find out who else is likely to bid. Find out who the existing supplier is. Is it a contract that's just coming to an end and they're looking to tender again, or was the previous contract terminated? You'll be able to find that information. And the tender portals that I mentioned will also have a record of past tenders and contracts and who were awarded those. But attending the briefing session will give you an understanding of your competitors to determine the level you will need to be at in order to win. And there's also opportunities to collaborate. You may not have all the skill set that the tender requires, but there's nothing stopping you from collaborating with other businesses or individuals to help you win the tender. And I mean, that's quite a common practice. Large scale construction projects are often joint ventures between various companies. So there's nothing wrong with that, so long as it's clear as to who the head contract is and who's responsible for ultimate delivery. Certainly by collaboration. I mean, I've done that myself with consulting projects. I've brought in other consultants to work with me to help beef up the skill set and business continuity issues and the like, and being able to win work that I wouldn't have won on my own. So you certainly look at collaboration as a way to win new work. What are the key factors to winning? Essentially, there are 4 of them. Positioning. So you need to understand the buyer, the opportunity, the marketplace. So do your research on the company or the government agency or the local government that you're looking to tender for. What are they trying to achieve through the purchase? Compliance, so you must meet all the pre-qualification requirements, if any, but you must go through and comply with the rules of the tender. So you basically tick all the boxes that they ask you to tick and supply all the information that's requested. Persuasion, it is a marketing exercise. You're trying to convince them that you can deliver what they want when they want it, and that you've got the organisational capacity to be able to do that. And remember, you're going to be competing against several other businesses as well that have submitted a tender. And price, so you're going to have the right value strategy and be in the ballpark. So, you need to be very clear on what your price base is and how you're going to structure your price and the actual price that you're going to submit. So you generally need all 4 of those factors to win the tender. So the next few slides, I've got some questions that are likely to form the basis of the questions that you will receive in a tender. So you need to work through these and ask yourself, are you tender ready at this point in time? And what I'd recommend is to just take those questions and jot some dot points down next to each just to start thinking about how you would go about answering these. So I'll leave these with you to go through, but there's just some useful questions, around how you deliver products, your customer service strategy, account management, skills and experience of your key personnel, demonstrated history of completing similar work. Those are the types of questions that you're likely to get in each tender. So work through those and start to think about your answers. And I think a lot of the key to this, to being successful, is to do a lot of pre-planning and work, preparing case studies of work that you've done in the past that are similar to the tender, getting all your information together and the like, which we'll go through. But if you can do some work on those questions and just start thinking about how you actually do these things, then that will help with your tender. Going through a tender process does give you an opportunity to start and think about how you actually run your business, and also identify any gaps in your business operations that you might need to fill in order to be able to be successful with a tender. So the final part is, once you've sort of read through your tender document, you've gone to a briefing session, you've determined that you're tender ready, you really need to make that decision now on whether you want to press the button and actually do the work to submit the tender. So look at things like, your financial capacity to meet the project establishment or ramp up costs. So, if it's the three-year contract, you might need to bring on more staff, buy new plant and equipment and the like. Do you have the financial capacity to do that? Do you have the resources to deliver the project over the specified time? Is the tender consistent with your strategic direction as a business owner and a business? And what resources do you need to complete the tender? I mean, can you spare the time to sit down and write the tender? What's the impact on your day-to-day business? Or do you need to get assistance to prepare tenders? And does your business meet the pre-qualification requirements? So, pre-qualifications, things like, attendance at a mandate briefing session. And it could be a certain license or registration that you require. If it's a legal tender, we obviously going to need to demonstrate that you've got the legal qualifications and the correct registrations to practice law in your state. Electricians, plumbers, you've got to demonstrate that you've got your qualifications and your licenses, and make that decision early in the piece to give yourself sufficient time to complete the tender. So go through that sort of no-go or no-go determination process. And once you've decided to submit the tender, then you need to get out and do the work of putting it all together. And, it could just be you doing it, or you might have a team of people working on it, depending on how big your business is. So, treat the process of preparing your submission as a project in itself. You've got a start and an end day. It's going to be delivered by 2 p.m. on Friday. You've got 3 to 4 weeks to complete your bid. Map out what you need to do over that period of time to get your submission done by the due date. You don't want to be rushing around on the day it's due, still working on your document. Try and aim to get it submitted the day before. So identify the people you need to have input into the tender. So strategy, document design, writing, collating, subject matter experts, bid estimators and pricing specialists. So, you might need to go outside to get pricing from some other businesses to help inform your pricing. You might need to speak to legal people about the contract. You might need to speak to your operational people about how you're actually going to deliver the contract, those sorts of things. So, surround yourself with the people that can answer the questions that you need answered. So gather all your information. So tenders are going to ask a lot of the same information, and require you to include the same information. So all your corporate details, your name, address, and ABN and the like, insurance details, your business name registrations and company registrations. They'll ask for referees. If you've got written testimonials, certainly include them as well. Relevant to the tender, brochures, ISO certifications, the licenses, permits, key personnel resumes, details of any policies or procedures, and case studies of work done in the past that are similar to this tender, and outline your methodology as to how you're going to complete the work. So that sort of standard information, set up a tender file and keep it all together for future tenders. So complete the tender requirements. So in terms of order, you've got your corporate details, your pre-qualification, your compliance criteria, and then you've got your selection criteria. That's essentially the nuts and bolts of the tender. That's relating to those questions that we went through earlier. You need to, and the key factors of winning, you need to convince me in this selection criteria that you can deliver what I want when I want it. And how you go about doing that will determine, the responses to the questions and the like. So, and provide specific examples of how you meet the criteria rather than simply stating that you do. So case studies of work that you've done in the past, for example. Price, as we talked about, address price requirements in the form that is requested. So there'll generally be a table that you need to complete with your pricing. They're not going to want to see all your working documents to determine the price. They're just going to want to see the final price plus GST. During that opening period, they may release some information about the tender. It could be responses to questions that have been asked. It could be responses to any issues or questions that arose at briefing sessions. These will be issued as an addendum, and they'll be issued through the portal that you downloaded the document to. So, you'll receive an email alert when an addendum becomes available. Make sure you read that because that could change how you price or how you respond to a question. You need to acknowledge in your tender submission that you have received them, and you have read them. So some tenders may require you to respond to that within 24 hours by just signing a form. Others may just simply want you to include that in your tender response. So referring back to the key factors that we talked about, this persuasion, look at your win themes. What's so special about your business? What's so special about it that's going to, encourage me as the person on the selection panel to give you the job? So, win themes, history of completing similar work, skills and experience of your key personnel dedicated to the contract, the type of plant and equipment that you use, your policies and procedures, testimonials, referees. They're all the things that help, help with win themes, or help me as a selection panel member to award you the contract, because having read your submission, contacted your referees, looked at your testimonials, looked at your case studies, I'm comfortable enough that you can deliver what I want when I want it, and I'm comfortable to give you the job. So demonstrate your business capacity, so your capacity to deliver the goods and services, and that's going to be determined by things like expertise, skills, qualifications, and experience of your key personnel, your organisational structure, your management systems, so your quality, your safety, your environment, risk, information security, governance, business continuity. These are all the things that you're likely to get questions about. So you need to have responses available, and also, how your capacity and your skills and experience, can deliver effective and efficient service and product delivery, can contribute to continuous improvement of the contract, can look at your day-to-day management, how you evaluate that, and how you're going to deliver the project or the product. If it's a 3-year contract to deliver services, how are you going to do that? How are you going to evaluate the performance of that? How are you going to rectify any non-conformance? How are you going to improve that over time? And ultimately aimed at delivering a quality business outcome for your principal. So presentation and structure. So remember, with tenders at the closing date, as someone on the selection panel, I'm not just going to be reading your tender submission. I'm going to be reading all the others that are submitted as well. So you need to make it easy and engaging for me to read it. I guess it's a bit like a book. If you read the first couple of pages and then you make a decision whether you want to continue reading or not. It's a bit like tenders in some regards. It's not the most exciting thing to do to sit through and read through tenders. So you need to make it engaging, make it easy for me to find the answers to your questions, answer all the questions and the like. So set out your document structure, same logical sequence as the tender document using the same heading. So more than likely there'll be a template that you complete, or you can create a template using those same headings. So again, I want to be able to look at my tender document that I release to the market, and then look at your submissions, and through that same logical approach, go through and say, yep, he or she has answered all these questions. Use simple, concise language, so avoid waffle and repetition. Use persuasive techniques. So as I said, it is a marketing exercise, so you need to articulate your key message as well. Don't just write page after page of text. If you can break it up with photos or graphs or flow charts, that's good. Also use headings and subheadings, and bullet points are very good. Have a consistent font, margins and layout design. So again, if you can tell the story in a flow chart with a bit of an explanation paragraph, that's good. But not just page after page of text. Avoid using vague answer all the questions. Don't leave me guessing. If something's not applicable, state it's not applicable. Don't leave anything blank. Make the document easily understood by an assessor who may be unfamiliar with your industry and also unfamiliar with you as a business. And that's important, because on a selection panel, you're going to get the person that's going to be managing the contract, but you might get someone from the finance department or whoever is selecting it as well, sitting on that panel. So they may not necessarily be a technical expert in the industry or your business. So be mindful of that. So if you're using acronyms or language particular to your industry, just make sure that you're spelling out what it is you're actually talking about. And again, make it engaging enough for the assessor to want to read it in full. That's it. That's important. Because when you've got 20 submissions that you're reading, they're all 50 to 60 pages long, you're going to be picky about the ones that you want to read in full. So another useful tool is to have a cover letter or an executive summary, just a short introduction to yourself as the business owner and the business. Summarise your win themes. So our capacity to deliver this contract is demonstrated by history of completing similar work, key personnel experience and skills, business continuity, risk management, other policies and procedures that you may have. Include a personal commitment to making the the supply of service or product and success. Include your contact details and have it signed by the most senior person. And then once you've got all that done, you need to, just go through and proofread and edit the document. Perhaps get an independent peer review. So you get someone that hasn't been part of the process to read the document and get them to, determine whether there's strong win themes. It answers all the questions. The depth of information is appropriate. It's logical and easy to read. It's internally consistent and technically correct. So, you're not saying one thing on one page and contradicting yourself on another. And likewise, if you've got to include plans or diagrams, that they are the correct version that you're using. The submission has all the information required. That's important as well. As I said, don't leave anything out, don't leave any blanks. Submit the application as per the requirements. So generally, you'll upload your application through the same portal that you downloaded the documentation from. You must deliver it by the closing date and time and obtain a delivery receipt. So, through the once you've uploaded your documentation, your tenders now are using electronic portals to download and upload documents. It's very rare that you'll have to deliver something to print 3 copies out and put them in an envelope and deliver it to a tender box. It's rare that happens, but it's still particularly in, I guess, rural and remote areas, but by and large, it's mostly through electronic means. During the process, respond to any request for information. I mean, the rules of the tender may say that, at some point in the tender, they'll select a shortlist and then get those shortlisted people to come in and do a presentation before they award the contract. So again, it's just important for you to understand the rules of the tender and how they're going to go about the assessment process. So once you've delivered it by the due date and time, you can sit back and have a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever, and it's over to people like me to do our job to award a contract based on those responses. So, and that's determined by the compliance, the selection, and the price criteria. So all tenders are assessed against the criteria referred to in the request document. So that's the only basis that the tender will be assessed and the contract awarded. We'll analyse the strengths and weaknesses of the bids. We'll determine you need to demonstrate that you have an understanding of the qualitative requirements. So that's the selection criteria. You need to demonstrate your capacity to meet the tender requirements. And ultimately, through reading your document, we'll have a level of confidence in your capacity to meet each requirement. It's that level of confidence that will determine ultimately, combined with your price, whether you get the job. So, compliance criteria. So we'll look at the pre-qualification requirements to make sure you've met those. And if you have, then we'll go through the compliance criteria, generally ticks yes or no type answers, looking at things like the types of questions you're likely to get. Are you prepared to accept the contract? Yes or no? And these sort of questions don't preclude you. So if you've got some concerns with the contract, you can say no and then list the clauses that you've got concerns with and perhaps propose an alternative wording. That's fine. Have you met the conditions of participation? So, obviously, have you delivered it by the due date and time? Have you on you to look at your financial security? Many local government tenders require you to include a full copy of 3 years of profit and loss statements. I mean, they don't want to sign you up to a 3-year contract and find that you go broke halfway through it. So these generally require a yes/no answer. And where you give a no answer, provide an explanation as to why you answered no. You may not be required to comply with every detail. So as I said, the contract is an example. Insurance is another example where they may specify a particular dollar amount for insurance. If you don't have that, then you would obviously tick no to that question. But you can give them some confidence if you're successful in winning the tender, you'll take out the necessary insurance to meet the requirements. So as long as you can demonstrate you can take out that insurance, and that would satisfy that question. So the selection or the qualitative criteria, so your success in the tender is determined by how well you address each of these. You must adhere to all the requirements. These questions may be weighted. So out of, say, 5 questions out of 100%, one might be worth 20, another worth 30. And they'll be point scored as well. So after reading these and responding to each of the questions and reading through them, the selection panel will meet will read all the submissions individually, independent of other members of the panel. We'll point score each of your questions based on the table, the ranking table that has been put together, and then we'll meet as a team and determine a group point score, and then that will ultimately determine the preferred supplier and the order in which each bid is listed on that supplier list. So obviously the business with the highest points will be regarded as the preferred supplier, and then we'll do the due diligence on them, and then we'll also look at the price to see whether it's within the budget range. And if we're comfortable with those things, then we'll award the contract to that business. Alternatively, if we're not, we'll look at the second highest point scored business. So when they say lowest dollar value is not necessarily accepted, that is true, but if they can get the lowest dollar, they will. But it'll all depend on the responses to the compliance and the selection criteria. So the types of questions that you're likely to get, capacity to deliver the goods and services. So that's where you talk about the processes that you're going to go through to deliver the goods and services. So all your management systems and the like. Skills, qualifications, and experience of key personnel. History of completing similar projects or supply of products. Methodology to deliver the goods and services. And demonstrated understanding of the scopes of work. So they're pretty much the stock standard questions you're going to get in the selection criteria. And if you go back to those questions I had in the Are You Tender Ready section of slides, you can see that those questions sort of filter into how you would respond to these types of questions. So the price criteria, as I said, based on value for money. Adopt the cheapest compliant decision. You need to demonstrate why your price will deliver best value, and also look at the price basis too. Is it a schedule of rates or lump sum, time payment, or whatever? So that's important as well. It could be a combination of those. So a lot of consulting contracts, that I've done recently, tenders that they want an upfront fee. You may be able to split that up into milestone payments, but then they ask you an hourly rate for anything over and above the contract. So just look at the price basis to make sure that, and fill it out in the form that they want it, which I mentioned earlier. Other things you need to be mindful of, and these apply across all the states: local content and regional price preferences, buy local policies. In WA, they've got industry participation plans. and look at Aboriginal and disability services providers as well. So here in WA, for example, any contracts up to $250,000 in state public sector, the government agency can go directly to an Aboriginal or disability service provider to supply the goods and services without necessarily going through a full tender process. So after the contract award, you'll be advised in writing of the outcome. If successful, you'll get on to, hopefully you'll get the phone call and you'll finalise the contract and commence work. If unsuccessful, you should receive a letter as well and be advised of the successful supplier and possibly the price. I would recommend you seek feedback on your submission to assist in writing further tenders. You are entitled to feedback. So that is always helpful. They'll just talk to your bid, but ask questions that'll help you improve your tender submission for the next time. So that's it in terms of the tender process. I just want to touch on now management systems, which I mentioned. So, the processes that you have in place that, help you manage your business, all your policies, your procedures, your work instructions, and the like. So all tenders are going to require details of your organisational capacity. Having these management and governance systems in place is critical to demonstrating that. It could be a pre-qualification requirement that you have a management system, certified, Quality 9001, for example. And it's just good business management to have these. Now, they need to, obviously, depending on the size of your business, will determine the size and extent of your policies and procedures, but you do need to have some simple, at the very least, simple procedures around things like work health and safety and environment, quality management, information security, and the like, because you will get questions about these. And if you've already got the policies and procedures, then that's going to make it easier for you to answer the questions. So certified management systems, so quality, which is the how you go about delivering good customer service. Environmental management, which is organisation, how you interact with the natural environment and protect that. Work health and safety, or OHS 45001, how you manage hazards and control risks in the workplace. Information security, so cyber security, information security management. Good governance. So you've probably heard of this thing called ESG, or environment, social and governance. This is, I guess, the corporate social responsibility license to operate that people are talking about now in terms of governance and management of businesses. I'm running a seminar at 11 o'clock, which you can still register for if you like, going into how to set up an integrated health, safety, environment and quality management system, and I do touch on ESG in that. So other management systems, risk management, business continuity, HR management, so how you recruit, select and induct and train staff and manage their performance. So just going back to the other one, business continuity is important. That's satisfying them that, under no matter what the circumstance, you can deliver goods and services when they want it. So, if you're a cleaning company and you've got to clean a community facility by Saturday, and you're in there cleaning it and one of your machinery breaks down, what's the implication of that? Do you have backup machinery to just continue on? What happens if you're not managing, you've got staff on site and they don't show up for work? What's the implication? How are you going to solve that problem? So protecting business information. So that's your cyber security and the like. You need to have some good systems and procedures in place. Some government tenders may ask for cyber liability insurance, depending on the nature of the tender. And that's some of the legislation around protecting business information. So Privacy Act is a Commonwealth Act, and every state government department is subject to their respective State Records Act, and also the Freedom of Information Act, as well as the Commonwealth government as well. So that's it for today. Thanks for participating. I hope you found that useful. I will send you a copy of this, as I said, and you will receive, or you will have access to the recording later on next week. So in conclusion, tendering is a great way to earn new business, but it can be time and resource intensive. Should be one component of your business development marketing strategy. So keep doing all the other things that you do. Pick the right tenders that you think you can win and know you can deliver. Attend briefing sessions regardless of whether they're mandatory or not. Treat the process as a project and manage people resources accordingly. Develop win themes and reinforce these throughout the submission, relating back to those key factors that we talked about. And then have in place robust management systems to demonstrate organisational capacity. Be particular about your presentation and structure. Undertake a critical review of the submission, proofread and edit, and deliver it by the due date and time. That's where we're at. So thank you for that. That's my contact details if you want to have a follow-up one-to-one advisory about a particular tender you're working on, or you need my services to help you write it, or any of the other advisories and services that I do as well, which you can find out from that website there. So thank you for your attendance. Good luck with that. What I would do from here is go and have a look at those websites, register for websites, and just have a go. Try and find a tender and just have a go at submitting it. So good luck, and thank you for participating. And as I said earlier, please take advantage of other Business Station services as well.